This is Tyler Nitro, the future of professional wrestling, and you're listening to Top of the Morning podcast presented by TopRopeReport.com.
Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Eric Ames, and this is episode 19 of the Top of the Morning podcast, presented by TopRopeReport.com. And before we get into our show this week, which is another great interview conducted by TopRopeReport.com's Doug Berrill, I want to address why we did not have an episode last week. Of course, on our previous show, which I believe was the Fastlane preview and prediction show, I talked a little bit about how I had been battling a cold, but then I also had an interview scheduled that I got blown off for. So generally speaking, when this happens, I will not try to reschedule with the person whose name I will not give out, just because I try to keep things as professional as possible. But I also want you guys to know what happened as well. However, this person reached out to me and apologized, seemed very sympathetic for basically blowing us off and missing the commitment, and was looking to reschedule. So we were all rescheduled for last week, and then, sure enough, 10 minutes before go, they cancel on me again. So that is why we did not have a show last week. Of course, I guess lesson learned, once that happens, I will not be trying to reschedule with anybody again. Because I could have brought you an episode last week if I would have known, but with 10 minutes of advance notice, I kind of was left powerless, so we'll definitely be looking to avoid that in the future, so we can keep bringing you guys great content. As for this week, like I said, we have another great interview conducted by TRR's Doug Berrill with one of the stars of the independent scene, a guy who's really been making his name for himself in the New England area. His name is Tyler Nitro. He has worked for numerous promotions in the Northeast. We know him best from his work with Limitless Wrestling, a independent promotion right here in the state of Maine that's been really making a lot of waves over the last year plus. So we've kind of become acquaintances with Nitro just through our hazing of him at the shows, and he takes it all in stride, obviously, plays into it very well, and knows that we're just trying to play along with the program and bring the heat for him, as some would say. So he was nice enough to give some time to Doug and talk about all kinds of stuff. So very, very interesting interview. Definitely, I know I was looking forward to hearing it because I think that Doug does a great job with the interviews. So hopefully I'll be able to hook him up with some more stuff like this as well. So here we are. Here is episode 19 of the Top of the Morning podcast, and this is Doug Berrill's interview with Tyler Nitro.
Good morning, Top Ropers. This is TRR contributor Doug Berrill, and for the second time now in a couple weeks, we'll be mixing things up, and I'll be taking the driver's seat. My guest this time is a talented young wrestler who is really building a name for himself, particularly in New England, but he's starting to expand that perimeter, which is definitely something I'll be touching on a little bit later. He's someone I've grown to enjoy in the shows that I've seen him, and appreciate him in a real hurry. So welcome, Tyler Nitro. So Tyler, before we dive in with some Q&A, thanks for taking some time to talk wrestling. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. And, I like anybody who comes on this show, I definitely want to touch on your background soon. But first things first, I've personally seen you compete multiple times for a main-based promotion that is doing some great things, and that's Limitless Wrestling. And, I had just asked how you were doing tonight because we're chatting on a Wednesday evening, but Top of the Morning...
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's right. But Top of the Morning drops on Saturday mornings. So the reality is I'll be seeing you at Limitless's next big show, Hysteria, in 2 nights on St. Patrick's Day. But when people have an opportunity to give this a listen, it'll actually be the night before. So in jest, I could say, well, let's jump in our time machines, and I could say, hey, great match last night. but in actuality, it's still coming up. It's 2 days away, and I know that this is a big match for you, and you'll be taking on All Ego Ethan Page, I believe for the first time ever. So before we get into anything else, tell me a little bit about your opponent, this match coming up, and what it means to you.
Well, I'm relatively new still to professional wrestling. I've only been wrestling for 3 years, and not many good opportunities like this present themselves to young wrestlers. And Limitless Wrestling has presented me with the biggest opportunity in my career thus far. Ethan Page, he's a guy who's well known all over the United States, all over the world. I'm pretty sure he's been just about everywhere he could be. It's a shock to me that he's not signed, but that's good for me because I get to go one-on-one with him this Friday, and it's going to do wonders for my career. I mean, I'm just going to give it my all come Friday night. I'm going to do whatever it takes to show the world that Tyler Nitro is here for a long time.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to it. And, and as you know, because you've participated on several of their shows, Limitless has done a fantastic job in a really, when you think about it, just a couple years, so really a relatively short existence. They've really built themselves up and done a great job in a hurry. And Friday night or last night, if you're listening to this now, Hysteria is going to feature a main event featuring, Ricochet against Matt Sydal, the man best known for his stint in WWE as Evan Bourne, a promotion, Freelance Wrestling, who I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's a Chicago-based promotion.
Yep.
They're sending 4 of their guys out here for an elimination tag match, and our hometown guys as Limitless. We have 2 popular tag teams defending our promotion's honor, if you will, and that being the Main State Posse and the mixed tag team of Jeremy Leary and Skyler. Regional favorite Ace Romero is doing battle with Keith Lee. A former WWE tag team champ and Rene Dupree is in the house, and just so much more. Limitless really, and firsthand, really puts on some great shows. It's going to be another great show. But I'm not just pumping you up when I'm looking down the card, I looked at Nitro and Page and thought, that's going to be a damn good one. So I definitely wish you the best. I hope you have a blast, and we'll be front row to cheer you on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. It's going to be a good time. So let's let people know about how you got to the spot that you're in right now. And correct me if I'm wrong again, because this is pure speculation and guessing on my part. There are so many different stories about how and when different people get into wrestling. Some people never even give it a consideration until something happened in their adulthood. But I just have this intuitive feeling that you're a guy who knew you wanted to do this for a while. Would I be wrong in saying that? And whether I'm right or wrong, just tell us a little bit about how and when you knew this was for you.
Well, you nailed it right on. This is something that I've wanted to do since I could walk. It was just something that, me and my father, we would do just to spend time together. We'd watch wrestling, and it's the thing that brought our bond close together, and it is what I've grown to want to do ever since I could walk. Everything about wrestling is amazing. The athleticism, the pageantry, the stories behind everything, it's great. And not to mention, it was like, when I was about a freshman in high school, I went to my very first professional wrestling live event. I got to go in a professional wrestling ring, and I got to take a picture with Kurt Angle. And from that moment on, I knew I no longer wanted to be just a fan, that I was going to make this dream a true reality.
That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, I was going to say that, like, there's always these defining moments, I think, for people. So would you say that, that moment with Kurt Angle, would you say that that's obviously a defining moment, but would that be the defining moment?
I would think so, because I never have ever stepped foot in a professional wrestling ring before in my life. I mean, obviously when you're a kid, it's a dream, and a lot of people just have a dream and they never follow it, So I didn't want to be one of those people, but I wasn't sure how to take that step to get to where I was, and meeting Kurt Angle and being in the ring and seeing how the fans and the people were reacting to all of it. That right there, it's like something just dawned on me on that moment, just like I wanted to be ready to go right at the next show whenever. I was just so pumped after that, and from there on out, I have trained in 4 different schools now. So,
how old were you when you met Kurt Angle?
I was a freshman year, so it's about 15, 16 years old.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. You talk about, great influences. I know that one of your other great influences, just because I took a look at some other things that you've talked about in the past, is Shawn Michaels. And I want to talk about Shawn in a little bit, but I've got a couple questions before that. So once you decide, so are you basically in high school when you decide, hey, I want to wrestle? Is that basically the time?
Yes. Yeah, it was my freshman year was truly when I started looking into what I could do as far as finding a place to train.
Sure. And now I know that you're based out of New Hampshire right now, but you're not originally from New Hampshire, am I right?
Right.
Yeah. Where are you originally from?
Well, I was born in Miles City, Montana, and I moved to the Jamestown, New York area, which is like on the outskirts of Buffalo, about an hour away. And I lived there for the majority of, I lived there for my entire high school career as far as, an older teenager. Because Montana, I love it, but with all due respect, there's no wrestling whatsoever out there as far as professional wrestling goes. So I knew that in order to even see wrestling live and in person, I had to move, and I had to live with my mom in New York. And yeah, so I lived most of my time in New York.
So did you move to New Hampshire after you were done school, or after you were done high school?
I graduated. I went to college for about a year at my hometown community college, and I just, at that time I was training and working shows. So, and my motivation was just straight on. Like when I was in college, like my first day of college, the day before that was my very first professional wrestling match. So that's when the ball started rolling. And from there on out, I was like, I could not focus on school. I could not focus on anything but wrestling. And so I just went to work. I had multiple jobs, and I trained in multiple places during that time and wrestled as much as I could.
Well, I think anybody who is, really trying to grow and make it in wrestling, they definitely all have stories about having to work day jobs. Some people call them shoot jobs, and then just really putting their passion behind those jobs and putting their time and energy and everything else into wrestling. So, in terms of like when you knew, okay, so you knew when you were in high school, like this is something I want to do, and this is something I'm going to pursue. And you went to school after college for a little bit. Tell me a little bit about like your path in terms of training, not just not just where you trained, but any prominent figures that you trained with, or not necessarily. When I say prominent, I don't mean like they were WWE superstars. I just mean people who were impactful in your training. So where did you train, and what were some of the great lessons that you learned during that time?
Well, when I first tried to start training for sure, it wasn't there was 0 schools where I was, which I was surprised. But me and my good friend, we were mat wrestlers together through high school, and we wanted the same thing. So it started about our junior year. We started going to a lot of independent shows, and we just kind of kept showing up, and they kept on like, hey, do you guys want to hop in the ring, pay a couple bucks, and learn from one of our guys? So we started doing that for a long time, and eventually we showed up at this one company so many times and was training so many times repetitively that it was just a thing. We started like more people were paying to become trained, and we were kind of helping get the word out about it. So then eventually they could get a building, and then they finally did. And then once I started training on a strict basis, from there on out it was just wins my first match. But where the school was, it took place in Erie, Pennsylvania. And the trainer was Aaron Draven. Very good dude. He taught me how to be tough. He taught me how to be respectful. Taught me that, you got to go outside your comfort zone in professional wrestling, that you can't just sit there and be the quiet kid like you were in school. So that's where I first started.
Is that what you would consider yourself in school, the quiet kid?
Yeah, I was. My family always used to bust on me because I was the guy that would sit and be quiet, anywhere else, around my friends and stuff when we would hang out at my friend's house and play Xbox or whatever you want to call it, or, I'd be just a normal guy and I'd talk so much, but in regular situations out in public and in school and stuff, I was the quiet guy just getting through the day.
That's funny because when and this is just my experience. I've seen you. I think I've seen you 4 times now. I would have to think about it specifically, and obviously I'll be seeing you again in 2 days. But you carry yourself very well. You carry yourself very well in the ring, and it's really funny because I hear stories about people who do different things, not just wrestling, but let's think about other. I don't want to call them art forms. I mean, wrestling is an art, but you know what I mean. Like when I think about singers, there are a lot of great singers, and they say, I was really shy in front of crowds, and so it actually surprises me to hear you say that you were kind of the shy, quiet kid, because you carry yourself quite well in a wrestling ring, and it's one of the things that we immediately, when I say we, just me and my friends that go to the show, why we gravitated to you, because you carry yourself well in the ring and you play off the crowd quite well. So, talk a little bit about what that's like, especially as somebody who may have been a little bit more reserved, but now you're in front of an audience. Sometimes, like when you go to Hysteria, probably around 400 people, when you go and stand in front of 400 people to compete and perform, what that's like with the crowd and everything else.
Well, I'll admit it. The first time I ever cut a promo, ever, I almost threw up because I was just so nervous. So it surprises me that you gravitated towards me so easily because you think I carry myself so well. Because every time I go out there, I'm nervous. I'm nervous as all get out. I have to drink what feels like a gallon of water before I go out. But I just mentally prepare myself because, I just do whatever I do, and I know that this is what I'm, if I'm truly meant to do this, that I need to just suck it up. And I always think of myself as like, back in the day when Shawn Michaels would come out and he'd just hold his fist in the air and have a smirk on his face. That's kind of the mentality I kind of throw onto myself before I hit that curtain. I always try to exude confidence into myself before I hit the curtain, because before you know it, you're in front of 400 people or more, and they're all ready to see you. So if you're not ready, they're gonna know it.
Well, I'll say this: you do a great job, man. Because I totally respect that, and I can totally relate to that because I've been in situations in the past, just over time, where I've been in, say, what's somebody's biggest fear? Like when you talk about people's biggest fear, and I'm not talking about like death fears. I'm talking about, other fears, and people talk about like the fear of public speaking or things like that. And I've been in situations in the past where I've been in a position to speak publicly in front of a large group of people, and dude, I'm right with you, because I've been right there where I am so nervous to do that, no matter how big or small it is, and then I go out and do it, and and sometimes I'll be critical of myself, and then I'll have a whole bunch of people come and pat me on the back and say, "Wow, you did a really nice job with that." And I think that's what's going on, because when you go out to the ring, I got to tell you, man, you carry yourself with a lot of confidence, and it's something that we really enjoy, and we enjoy the back and forth that you give to the crowd. So, keep doing what you're doing, dude.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. And when you talk about, you were talking about training in Pennsylvania, and I know that when you're a wrestling student, you never really stop being a wrestling student. Am I right?
You're completely right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've trained. That wasn't my only school. I kept training and training and training. That's how I even got started out here, is by going to a school.
Yeah. And so now, you've been in New England. How long have you been in New England for?
About a year and a half now.
And obviously, you've not only been working shows, but I imagine, you're a constant student. Am I right in saying that when I talk about your mentors, which I'm sure you have several, but if I say the name JT Dunn, would you say mentor?
Yes, sir, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so I kind of wanted to talk about him for a second, because there's a guy who is not just a fantastic performer, but the more that I learn about him, he also has a pretty, he's also pretty inspiring. He has an inspiring backstory, and at the last Limitless show in Westbrook, Maine, that you were at, and that I was in the crowd for, he tore the house down in the main event with Cody Rhodes. And I was already a JT Dunn fan, but that night really cemented him in my eyes. So if I just go ahead and give you the name JT Dunn, tell me a little bit about your experience with him and what he means to you.
Well, when I first found independent wrestling, because not many people growing up that like wrestling know about independent wrestling, at least back when I was about 15, 16, it wasn't as popular as it is now, so it wasn't easy to find. So it just, you don't really, well, it was easy to find, but you don't really know about it. But I Googled it and started YouTubing it and stuff, and believe it or not, it was during JT Dunn and David Starr's run, when they were just destroying tag teams all over the United States, taking tag team titles all over. And I just thought he was a cool dude. I was watching matches, and he was doing cool stuff, and I never thought in my life I'd ever train with him. Fast forward a couple years, I moved to New England, and he's running a school. Strong Style brand, got in contact with me. Well, I contacted them, but they got in contact with me back about where to go, how to get in contact with. He was training at the chop shop at the time, and I showed up, and from there on out, he taught me everything I need to know as far as cementing myself as a true professional in independent wrestling. JT Dunn is a star on the indie scene. People all over the world know his name now, and it just, the way he trains is amazing. He, step by step, hand by hand, he'll get in the ring and he'll show you himself. And for that, I'm forever thankful, because he taught me a lot. He taught me how to, I came from a amateur wrestling background, and in amateur wrestling, you move quick, you make fast movements, and I kind of brought that into pro wrestling with me. And JT really told me, like, it's okay to slow down. Like, JT, he dabbled in boxing when he was younger. He did football. So he understood where I was coming from with moving too fast. So he helped me slow down. And on top of it all, he gave me my first chance in New England. No one else wanted to give this young kid a chance that came all the way from New York. But JT did, and he also opened the door to plenty of other places. And he told me I could use his name wherever I go, which is very helpful when you're a young guy and no one really wants to give you a chance because you're a no-name still. So that's what I think when I think of JT Dunn.
Yeah, he seems really influential, not just outside of here, but particularly here in the Northeast. He's such a fantastic performer, and sometimes, like, even though, because obviously, you have a personal relationship with him, I don't, but you know how you just, when you watch a guy and how they carry themselves, you can just tell, like, that's a good dude, and that's what I get when I see JT Dunn.
Yeah, back in the day, I guess, before I knew him personally, I guess he had a real bad rep. I could never see that now because he's always been a nice guy to me. But yeah, I could never see him being mean or terrible to anybody. He's just a respectful, humble dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I think that sometimes, like, there are experiences in life that change you, and it sounds like he may have had some of those, but yeah, I think that he's ultimately a positive force in the Northeast wrestling scene. Would you agree?
I agree.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the Northeast wrestling scene, this is just going to kind of be just a free-for-all question for you, because this could be anything. Who else have you worked with that has been particularly influential in your career so far?
There's a lot of great talent in New England for sure. New England is certainly a hot spot. It's a hidden gem in professional wrestling. At least I always thought that the top names were down south or over in California area, but there's a lot here. One guy who I can name particularly is Ace Romero. A lot of people don't know due to the fact because it was in a smaller independent company we wrestled for, but I faced Ace Romero and I traveled with him, and he's also a very good teacher himself. He could really sit you down and tell you what you did wrong, and he'll tell you how to get better. And he truly did that. I had one of the best matches in my career with him this far, Also, Anthony Green, he's a good guy, very talented dude. He has a true passion for it. I love the people that truly want to do great things in professional wrestling, and guys like Anthony Green and Ace Romero and the Main State Posse, they want it too. And there's just so many names I could list off right now. New England is just going to be on fire for years. I can tell you that.
Yeah, definitely. And, at the last, I mean, obviously, you've worked a lot of the last Limitless shows. Those are the ones that I tend to go to. I'm very familiar with some of the other promotions in New England. I don't always get to go to them, but I'm familiar with some of the other promotions that you work with. But I am going to kind of stick with Limitless just because of my firsthand experience. And you were just like, you were mentioning like the Main State Posse. And what do you think about the New England crowds in general? Because I got to say, when we did that show in January, the one where JT and Cody main evented, that was unreal, or the show name was unreal in January. I believe you guys, I know you were in a tag team match with the Main State Posse. I believe you guys were second on. Am I right?
Yes, if I remember correctly, I think we were second.
Yeah, I think you were second because
I could be wrong though.
Well, because I just remember you guys went kind of early, and I think it was second, and it was what, Flip Gordon and
John Silver was first.
Yeah, John Silver was first, and they opened the show, and man, we had a full house, and they came out, got the crowd riled up. You guys came out with MSP, and the crowd was just as hot. And I remember looking at my friends there in the front row, because you guys were really both of those first two matches, they were just on fire. The crowd was so into it. The crowd was so hot, and I was feeling like tired. I was like, man, I'm so tired from just getting into the action. And so, like, what do you think about the scene? Like, how do you think the New England scene compares? Because we've had some good crowds at Limitless, but I don't know what the rest of the scene looks like.
Well, I tell you what, New England fans sure love their wrestling. That's for sure. It makes our job as professional wrestlers so much better because it's so much easier because when you hear just the roar of the crowd, it just motivates you to tear it up, rather than hearing nothing. So I always love hearing that. Obviously, I haven't traveled the world yet, so I can't attest to too many other places, but I have been almost all the way down the East Coast. So, and I'd say New England is by far the loudest and more entertaining crowds. They like to give you feedback once you tell them what's up.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was talking about earlier. I mean, that was one of the things that I noticed about you. I was like, man, this guy gets it. He knows how to play to the crowd, and so we've enjoyed the heck out of you at these shows, man. So like, keep up the good work. And speaking of that show, and speaking of guys like Cody Rhodes coming to Limitless, and any other prominent regional promotions that you compete for, let's talk about that for a second, because obviously when a promotion brings in a veteran who has established themselves in major promotions, either here or around the world, it's helpful in terms of drawing at the door, which in turn helps everybody gain more exposure and build their name. So obviously that's a plus. But it also must be fantastic for somebody who is trying to make their way and climb the ladder right now, in terms of just getting their ear for experience and advice. So in the shows that you've been to, when they bring in somebody like that, have you had any standout or meaningful experiences or interactions with guys like that coming in?
Yeah. I mean, definitely when Cody Rhodes came in, I didn't really get to talk to him too much. He was just a really nice guy, and it's always nice to just lean an ear in, just to hear what they have to say. I always am interested. But during one of my, I think it was I was about 8 months into professional wrestling, and his birthday was just up. Nikita Koloff.
Oh, yeah.
With him. But he was on one of our shows as a special guest referee. somewhere down in PA where I wrestled. And for some reason, I had a ladder match that night, and it was in a home area near New York, so I had a lot of fans there. And for some reason, he just really, really took to me and told me that, I have a true passion. He could see it, that I'm meant to be here, and that the future is bright. So to hear things like that, and then later on, of course, he sat me down and told me what to do right and what I did wrong, of course, like they all do. But to have someone just say those things to a young guy like myself, it's truly helpful because confidence is a tough thing in professional wrestling. If you don't have confidence, that entire crowd is going to know you don't. Confidence is what builds you and what helps you get through an entire match, believe it or not. Yeah, when you're confident and you believe in yourself, that entire audience is going to believe in you. So to have someone who has been there, who has done what you want to do, tell you that you're going to be all right and that you're doing good, it truly is motivating. And I was on a show also recently with why am I not thinking of his name right now?
Where was the show?
It was XWA.
Okay.
For some reason, I'm having a mind blank right now. Is it? Well, we'll scratch it. But just in general, just having people like that is grateful for anybody in the locker room because they'll a lot of them will take the time to sit and talk to you. The Miracle Mike Bennett, he's also one of those guys who is good like that. He'll sit down and talk to you in a very calm manner, and he'll explain to you what you did right and what you did wrong, and he'll give you a confidence boost, At least he did for me, and I appreciate those things. I appreciate being told what I did right and what I did wrong, what to improve on, how to improve on it, and then, and not just getting dogged on.
Yeah, no, I think that respect in the business, I think that's huge. It seems like that's a huge thing. And I was gonna mention, the Miracle Mike Bennett. He was at a show back in I think it was September, and that was Limitless. Have you worked with him other times, or was that the time that you got to meet him?
I did some training down at the Kingdom with Matt Taven and Mike Bennett and TK O'Ryan and Vinny and all them. Unfortunately, I'm not a superstar in professional wrestling yet, so I don't make a lot of money. So my shoot job has gotten in the way of me getting over there again. But
right.
But just being there a couple of times, was amazing. Just to he was really good at teaching you step by step and really slowing things down. I'm the type of person that you kind of got to explain things in decent detail for me to get it, just because I'm not a whiz kid, never was. So the way he explains things was great. I've been lucky to have pretty good trainers. Guys that I've trained with have been pretty good to me and have pretty good names of their own. So
yeah, absolutely. Mike Bennett seems like a great guy, and
yeah.
I remember when he came to that show in Maine back in September. Oh my word, I was laughing my butt off. I don't know if you were out in the back or if you got to see his match or not, but of course, a lot of fans know that Mike Bennett is married to Maria Kanellis. And so the fans started chanting, "Where's Maria?" And he cut a heel promo saying why Maria would never come to a place like this. And the fans with the Limitless crowds, they're kind of funny, and so they started chanting back that we don't blame her, which I was laughing my butt off at that.
That's what makes him great, man. That's what makes him great.
Yeah. So, in terms of, because obviously, there's nobody who gets into wrestling, again, unless you get thrusted into it as an adult and it wasn't ever really your passion. There's nobody who has a passion for wrestling who doesn't have their big influences. We've talked about, or I mentioned earlier that I know that Shawn Michaels is one of your major inspirations. I'd like to know about a couple more in a second, but in terms of Michaels, it's not shocking, when you consider just how many guys that guy has had an influence on, through every level, through so many years. And I really think he was a trailblazer in a lot of ways because, but can you give us some specifics on what you admire so much about HBK?
Just his passion, man. He just bleeds passion for his work. You can really tell when someone cares about what they're doing. Every match, no matter if it was a pay-per-view or if it was just a regular Monday night or a Saturday night, he tore it up every time. From the moment he was part of the Rockers with Marty Jannetty to the moment he was winning the championship for the very first time against Bret the Hitman Hart. He just every time. And then he came back from an injury with the same passion. And he is a workhorse, and he just exudes talent. And he knows how to tell a story. That's what I love about him. He hits the special moves at the special times. He doesn't just throw shit for the heck of it. He places things in the right area. That is why so many people love him. That is why so many fans, so many wrestlers, whoever. If you're into wrestling, you followed wrestling, you know who Shawn Michaels is because he's told you a story. And he told you a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll even expand on that because people are talking a lot about, people who watch the WWE these days or whatnot, they talk about the new era. And so what does the new era mean? And, basically what they're talking about is the fact that there has been this this glass ceiling or brick door, whatever you want to call it, that's been a little bit knocked down. And there's all these guys who, would otherwise be considered indie darlings, if you will, and they're just getting a shot based on the fact that, they're great performers and, they're with fewer politics and without the fact that, hey, I'm not 6'9" and 350 pounds. I don't need to be 6'9" and 350 pounds to be taken seriously as a top wrestler. And so you've got these guys that are just working their way up in WWE and NXT. And when you start to go back in time, you start to talk about guys who, in some ways, were trailblazers in terms of becoming superstars on a major level. And you might talk about a guy like Eddie Guerrero, and you might talk about a guy, and Eric, when he listens to this, he's going to laugh because he knows that I'm a big mark for him. But you talk about a guy like Chris Jericho, a guy who may not have the size, right? But they have the charisma, they have the work, they have everything else. The fans love them, and they can, quite literally break the walls down. But really, to me, Shawn Michaels was the trailblazer, because he came out and he started really breaking down walls after the days of Hulkamania. After the days that, that you needed to be 6'8", 300 pounds to make it as a professional wrestler. And that's when I think about Shawn Michaels' legacy, there's a lot to think about, but that's the biggest one for me.
Of course. He definitely paved the way for all of us, not so bodybuilder-like guys, I'm very thankful for a guy like Shawn Michaels who he grabbed that proverbial brass ring and showed the world and anybody who else wanted to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Have to be a giant to make it in the sport of professional wrestling.
Who, if you were to expand off of Shawn Michaels, who are some of your other influences?
Mr. Perfect, he's one of them. I like Rob Van Dam, uh, Chris Jericho, Edge,
Yeah.
and I'd have to say, and a lot of people are gonna pick on me for it, but that's all right because he's good. But Dolph Ziggler,
Yeah, dude.
and
Big Ziggler fan.
of course, and then guys like AJ Styles and Austin Aries. I love those guys as well. There's just so much good talent. It's hard to pick one, but those are the few that I'm huge fans of.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I got a couple more for you, and because we're gonna wrap up soon. But hey, in terms of like your career so far, if you had to pick, and if you have more than one, you can mention more than one. But if you were to mention like one match that's my standout match so far, what match would you pick? What's your best match so far?
I would say my match versus Ace Romero.
And where was that?
That was in Maine. It was for another company. It was a real small show. It was just I was there just to basically make my name in more areas in New England, and Ace happened to be going to the same place. We rode up together, not knowing that we were going to end up working against each other. We ended up being the very first match, and Ace, being the good guy he is, he was a relatively known guy there, and he helped put a match in place to where it looked almost flawless. And for a bit, I'm not gonna lie. When I first met Ace Romero, I would have never thought in my life that big guy could move and go as long as he could.
He's nuts, dude.
Don't underestimate him, because man, that guy can go for sure. And it was a fun match, and that's where I grew a lot of respect for him, because you could truly tell when someone wanted. In that match, you could tell we both wanted it, and that's why Ace is where he's at right now, because he's that good.
He's nuts in a good way. Like that's how I've described him to other people before. Like that guy, he's passionate and he's nuts in a good way. Does that make sense?
That's very good. I mean, what other 300-pound dude are you going to see flipping over the top rope?
Oh my word!
He is, but everyone loves it.
Yeah, like he goes out and I'm like, oh my God, please don't hurt yourself, dude. But no, he always delivers, and he's passionate, and his passion shows right through his teeth. Yeah, so that's great. And I honestly, you've shown a lot to the Limitless crowds, that's for sure. As you continue to work, I saw a post on social media about you getting your passport, and you have a match coming up in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. So you're definitely expanding your perimeters. What are your goals?
I just want to be considered one of the best. I don't want to be just an average guy who stays in a local area and makes his name and never risks it to go out in a different area and try a new crowd. I want to travel the world. That's part of being a professional wrestler that I also love, is that you get to travel the world and do what you love. So I'm trying to bust my ass to get to those points. That's why I got my passport, so I can go to places like Canada, so I can go to the UK, so I can go to Germany, so I can go to Japan, go to Mexico, wherever. Whoever will hire me to wrestle, I will gladly be there. There's no end goal, right now. Wherever I end up, that's where I end up. But I would love to just travel the world and show the world my favorite art, which is professional wrestling.
That's awesome, dude. So, what is that show? Because I know you were saying you have a show in Canada coming up.
Yeah, it's C4 Wrestling. They're in Ottawa, Ontario. I'll be taking off probably as soon as I'm done, and as soon as the show's done in Maine, I'll be heading up to Canada for that show.
So it's right
for
after
my very first. Yeah, it's Saturday, but it's an 8-hour drive. So.
Oh man, long miles, dude.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean
make
that's
the drives.
That tends to be the lifestyle. I was talking the last time I did an interview on here. I was talking to Ray Lloyd, and he's best known for his stint in WCW as Glacier. And we were talking a little bit about the independent scene, and I said that, like, you can tell, like, when somebody really has a passion for something. You don't even have to know them that well. You can tell it just bleeds through their teeth, and he was kind of concurring with that. And because it's a tough lifestyle, man, to work a shoot job and to do all that traveling. But if you love it, you love it. And when you love it and you bring that to the ring, the fans can definitely tell. And I mean, you've made a really good impression on the Limitless crowd, I gotta say.
Well, I'm trying, man. I work hard. Whatever Mr. Carver throws at me, I try to take the ball and run with it. So, I'm very appreciative of Limitless Wrestling. I got my foot in the door. I was a newcomer to New England. I drove 3 hours to Orono, Maine, just to watch a show. I got advice from JT because JT was at that show. It was a show where you guys might have been there or not, but it was JT Dunn versus Anthony Green versus Brian Berry.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't at that one, but I know some people who were.
Yeah, that was my first experience there. I got my foot in the door. I asked JT if it was okay if I showed up because I've never done it before, because usually you never know if it's frowned upon if you just show up, So I wanted to ask him if it was okay, if he thought it was a good idea. He said, yeah. He said, just a message Randy. I told Randy, hey, man, you don't know me, but I'm a young guy looking for work. I'm going to come up and check the show out. And, he saw my match versus Ace, and he saw my determination get up there, and he started using me. So it's been great ever since.
That's awesome. Before we wrap up, we're going to go a little bit away from the independent wrestling scene. I don't know how much have you been watching the WWE product at all?
Yeah, I watch it here and there, of course.
Yeah, so because we got WrestleMania right around the corner, so the card's shaping up. I don't know. We got Goldberg and Lesnar, and we got Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. We got a couple big matches. What are your thoughts on WrestleMania?
I love WrestleMania. I don't care what anybody says. WrestleMania is just like Christmas for me. Because, back in the day, of course, you get all your buddies together and you hanging out and you have a big old WrestleMania party, So WrestleMania is huge for me. This year, it's going to be great. Hopefully I'll get to watch it. I'm not sure if I'm going to. I'll actually be in Orlando that week. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm booked for one show down there, and I might be able to catch Mania. It depends on how tickets go. I was thinking about maybe catching by or maybe catching it in my hotel room, but who knows? But I'm always excited for it. It's a good time.
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of wrestlers doing seminars down there, too, so that's probably a cool opportunity in terms of that, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, it's going to be fun. It's just a little ways away, and like I said at the top, we're 2 days away from Tyler Nitro facing Ethan Page at Hysteria in Westbrook, Maine, and I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, man, you're doing great things, for these promotions, and we're definitely rooting for you, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support. It's cool that a young dude from Montana that moved to New York and ended up here can make things happen. So I'm glad that I can entertain you people.
Absolutely. Well, Tyler Nitro, thank you very much. I'm going to see you at Hysteria. And where else can people see you in upcoming shows?
Well, of course, you can catch me at Limitless in Westbrook, Maine this Friday. You can catch me Saturday in Canada. Next weekend on Sunday night at the XWA Arena in West Warwick, Rhode Island. And then I'll be down in Florida.
Awesome. And I know that you also, obviously there's social media, but I think you also have a YouTube channel that has some of your matches. So between social media and YouTube, go ahead and give us a plug.
All right. So YouTube is at the Tyler Nitro. It's still in the works of getting all my videos on there, but there's two of my favorites on there already that you can watch. Twitter is at the Tyler Nitro, and Instagram at the Tyler Nitro Pro 1017, and on my Facebook page you can click the like button, follow my schedule, and see all my action pictures. It's at Tyler Nitro Pro Wrestler on Facebook.
Awesome, my man. Well, it was good to talk to you, and we're going to see you soon. Good luck, my friend.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you.
Okay, guys, that was Doug Berrill's interview with Tyler Nitro. And, of course, you can catch him tonight at the Westbrook Armory in Westbrook, Maine for Limitless Wrestling Presents Hysteria, a show that will be headlined by Ricochet taking on Matt Seidel, formerly known as Evan Bourne. So I know some of the TopRopeReport.com crew will be there. Personally, I will not be at this show. I do try to make it to most of the Limitless shows, but I will not be attending this one. However, if you are going and you see someone wearing a TRR shirt, that is probably Doug, so feel free to go up and say hello, and he'll definitely get into some conversation with you about pro wrestling, or just whatever you want, really. So with that being said, I would like to encourage everybody to, of course, keep reading TopRopeReport.com for all the latest and greatest news in the world of professional wrestling, especially this time of year as we head towards WrestleMania, which is generally when the most big news and just a lot of the more interesting stuff going on is happening. So you'll definitely want to keep updated with that. You can follow TopRopeReport.com on Twitter at TRR Wrestling, and we are also on Facebook at TopRopeReport.com with no dot, and then on Instagram at TopRopeReport.com with no dot. If you'd like to follow myself, I'm on Twitter at TRR_EAmes. Doug is also on Twitter at TRR_Doug. And you can follow Tyler Nitro at the Tyler Nitro. So until next time, my friends, we'll definitely be bringing you a WrestleMania preview and prediction show in a couple of weeks. Next week, we might do a week in review. I've got a couple of things on the table right now, so we'll see how that goes. But definitely make sure to check out past episodes of the Top of the Morning podcast and be on the lookout for future episodes. You can subscribe to us right on iTunes. We're also on SoundCloud, Podcruncher, and we are on YouTube as well. So we will catch you on the flip side, and as always, it's not how hard you get knocked down, but whether or not you can kick out.